So we have about 20 minutes for questions and answers, and a ton of questions.
Raise your hand if you have a question.
Thank you. Okay, here is one that is directed to Mr. Noguera. Are you sure I can read it?
Can't hear you, Diane.
Okay, thank you. The question is, I have not heard the word transportation used very much. Has there been any improvement in terms of connecting areas with a way to get to work?
So I think that's an ongoing discussion. There hasn't been enough collaboration with DART as there should be. But as I understand, the city didn't previously have a transportation department prior to T.C. Broadnack's administration. So, Michael Rogers just started after me, so he's probably been there about 6 months, and I know he is working on that factor. He also serves on the Housing Policy Task Force, and we're looking at opportunities to collaborate. The other one that you didn't mention is education, right? The city does not have a direct line of communication with DISD, but we should, because each of these factors sort of impact one another, from housing to transportation to employment to education, right? Those are like the top 4 industries that come together when you're looking at community development. So I think it's certainly a work in progress from a transportation perspective, and we've got a work cut out for us.
I would add on to that the city did have a TOD, transit-oriented development. So if you developed around those areas, they give you extra money, extra points to develop around transit stations. So a lot of developers try to develop around those transit stations so they can get that extra incentive to do that.
And be careful of TODs that are not always affordable for a long time. But I know that the city is working on a transportation policy. And it is my understanding, the city is working on a transportation policy, I believe, and it's my understanding that they're trying to cross knowledge or intel across all these different initiatives that they're taking. So it's a good thing.
As a professional who has worked with people from poverty over 30 years, this information is not new. My question is, in knowing this information, what is happening with the people who are trying to fight their way out of poverty? Policy can't fix it on its own. Laws can't fix it on its own. Someone has to work with the individuals and families too. I'm not hearing a comprehensive solution. Wait, there's another page.
That was just
What?
one page, Diane.
Oh,
That was just a one-pager.
okay, all right. Does anyone, you mentioned it just at the end of this last question, the need for comprehensive interaction between the silos, our government silos, on the issue. Is the regional housing assessment addressing that?
Okay, so the nature of the assessment is to look at what are some of the disparities and to draft solutions to address those issues. I would bring nuance to the statement made in that question. I think that policy and programs have a lot to do with who gets what. And so I think we have to stay very critical and very abreast of the rules being written and the program being designed. I now work for the Dallas Housing Authority. And of course, I would agree that you absolutely have to work firsthand with people in poverty. So for example, DHA has a department called the Self-Sufficiency Department, and we have case management to actually provide referrals and resources to families beyond the housing subsidy offered to them. We want to help them, we want to accompany them towards self-sufficiency. So I think it's going to take multiple layers, multiple sectors to overcome poverty. My main concern, because we are facing very deep issues, systemic barriers, there is only one way to dismantle systemic issues. It's through policies. Policies have a lot to do with those imbalances. And so, of course, I have a responsibility, you as a group have a responsibility on the everyday basis to advance the needle, all right? But ultimately, if you want to make transformative changes, we need grand scale change. And that comes with policy, city level, county level, state level, and federal level. So that's my answer.
Diane, Sherman has a project that is called Serenity Apartments that you could tell them about, the supportive housing.
Well, it's a tax credit deal, so we have to have a supportive housing in there. We partner with DHA, with the vouchers. It's the one we talked about, and we also do the case management in there for each one, just sort of like the program you just talked about. And if they're not working, we work with them to get jobs and work with them one-on-one. That's just a small piece, but as we say, policy, you know, if I didn't want to do that, I'm forced to do that because of the policy that says if you want this kind of project, the policy says you have to do it. So policy is a key factor in working with some of the other services, working with the clients.
Well, I think that there are people who work for the city of Dallas or are contractors for the city of Dallas, for instance, our sanitation workers, that don't make the wage that's required to rent the average apartment in this town. You know, that's something, again, that's institutional racism. That's something that the city has control over. We had a policy a poverty task force that in all their recommendations could not recommend increasing the minimum wage. I mean, it's the most obvious connection there is. So if sanitation workers are making $11 an hour and it costs $18 an hour, you need to make $18 an hour in order to afford the average rent.
And police,
Why are we doing that?
our police can't live here because it's so cold.
Your teachers can't live.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, neither can the teachers' aides or the security guards.
And we just raised taxes 12.5% in Dallas and Richardson. We really can't.
With the GRE.
Yeah, they go fast.
Okay, I'm having trouble reading this one, but it looks like it's important, so I'm going to try, okay? How do you verify if
We
they...
can't hear you.
Sorry. How do you verify if they are speaking for themselves or representing others? Some people say they speak for others, but they do not have that authority to do so. This is how we are being railroaded. When will you pass along and it is maintained across the aisle to redefine what is affordable housing? When they say affordable housing, affordable for whom? Gentrification or encroachment should not cause us to lose our homes. Why shouldn't it be the majority say whether we want that project to come in the neighborhood or just a few people who are getting money under the table? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to address something that I missed. I need to tell you about the city of Kyle. And it's a lot of politics. It's a lot
Stand
of
up.
It's a lot of who is deciding where something's going to be built. What area is going to be worked on in the city, and you can't do the expensive things been tried in San Antonio where you build the same apartments or condos, and one pays $300,000 and the other pays $25 a month. That doesn't work. In the city of Kyle, we had some houses that were built in Kyle, and it's gone right in, it's right on 35, and we enjoyed, they decided they wanted to protest right on 35, and so I joined with them and held the signs saying, support the home limit law. And we went and visited with the city council, and we'll try to say this as short as possible. We didn't think we got very far, but they heard us, said thank you, they were polite, and all of that kind of stuff. And then years later, we hear that a lawsuit has been filed against the city of Kyle. The home builders had filed a lawsuit against the city of Kyle because the city of Kyle wanted to increase their standards. And they got the NAACP, this is what bothered me terribly, the NAACP to go along with that lawsuit that you were pricing the average person that is black or whatever out of the market if you increase the price of the home. Well, that's not true. Anyway, I went up, saw the last day of the hearing, and went out into the hall and saw these men in suits, and I walked up to them and I said, which side are you with, or are you representing? And they said, well, one of them said, well, I'm with, shook my hand and said, I'm with the city of Kyle. I said, oh, yes. And I said, he said, well, you came before us. We came before that city council. They remembered us. But you know what happened? They went in there and they won that case. The city of Kyle and the other cities that had joined in with the city of Kyle, because they knew they were next. And they won. But there's an election that came up. You know what? The home builders replaced every single council member and the mayor. So why are you concerned with you are pricing homeowners out of the market and somebody's not paying their fair share nor giving the product that was bought and paid for probably by your tax dollars through HUD programs. We have to change something with the HUD programs and start doing something on the local levels and the state level to make these changes along with people like you are that are on the scene here in the Dallas area. Because they're going to change, those lawmakers. We've got to hold them accountable. But thank you, I appreciate it.
So, another question is, what?
Can I
Yes.
reflect on the question?
Sure.
It looks like there are a lot of parts to it, but when it comes to the research that we have conducted, as researchers, we want to be very cognizant of our place. We don't want to be too prescriptive. I wasn't even born in Texas or in the US, right? But something that we wanted to do, if we want to look into inequities, is to make sure that the voice of the community is reflected in the research. And so truthfully, it's been a 2.5-year research. We have invested most of our resources into community engagement. The goals that we have committed to the city are not our goals. They were actually drafted by the community, vetted by the community. So we had been working with community organizations to make sure that the reality, the landscape of housing and inequity was communicated to us. All right. So I think it's extremely important. I don't know did you get this question? No, I don't know. But I think it's a very good question. I would be very cautious of those who wants to make policy changes in the name of who did you talk to for this development to go through or this one, right? So you often have to be very careful about the hidden interest and who's claiming to be the representative of your voice and your community. I certainly am not. All I did is to look into data and look at whether or not we are aligned with HUD mission to provide affordable housing and not further discriminate or further segregate our city. But I would never have the legitimacy to go fight for any given neighborhood, unfortunately, at least not yet. But yeah, good question.
That is a nice segue to the next question. And I'm not reading the whole thing, but the gist of it is, how do you know when people come into your neighborhood who to trust? That's basically what this question is about. And that is a serious question, because it's questioning anyone who comes into the neighborhood and tries to get change to happen. Some is good and some is not. Do you guys have a comment?
I'll tell you at least what the city does, because, you know, especially for me being new here, it's important that we vet everyone that we're doing business with, you know, and for some folks who may have done business with us for a long time, that vetting process can be frustrating, because it's like, okay, I wasn't asked these questions before, I didn't have to provide this documentation before, but you know, a big part of it is to build that trust and to show that we are being transparent, and you know, to really expose whatever perceived issues there may be, so that we can get beyond that and actually get some work done. I think that's the hardest part for me, is that so much of the time that I spend is not, you know, building houses, but it's working on the communication plan to get to the point where we can actually build some houses.
This is a question for either Myriam or Sherman. My apartment building accepts vouchers if you already have one, but HUD says there are no more vouchers available. Is this true?
No, it's complicated. This is how it works, in my understanding. Each housing authority has a certain number of vouchers that they can actually allocate. As of right now, I believe our waiting list is closed for the Dallas Housing Authority.
Good point.
Oh, yes. Well, I think the starting point of this is that in America, you are not entitled to housing, which is absurd to me, being a foreigner. We have decided as a country that the provision of housing is not a priority. It's not a right. And so you might very much qualify for housing, but it doesn't mean that you're going to get it. You might be on the waiting list, or you might just never ever get it. So I think our waiting list is about 6 years, if I'm not mistaken. And it's about the same across the country. It just takes forever, right? And when you think about the very pressing issues that low-income families are facing on a daily basis, you have 6 years to wait.
But the problem is we keep hearing about all the apartment managers, owners won't accept vouchers, but there are none, you know, I mean.
No. So we have, think about voucher as a process. Some families today already have vouchers in their hand, and they have between 90 and 120 days to locate a unit that would fulfill that would meet all the requirements of the program. So they are in a search for housing. We have families looking for opportunities in different neighborhoods. And I think it's a different question. The ability of a family to locate a housing unit in a high opportunity area, it's still something that we are unable to promise and to provide them.
Excuse me, but that part I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's happening that I'm seeing, because I'm living with it, there's a whole new bunch of people suddenly needing these vouchers. I mean, this is a bunch of new seniors, a bunch of veterans, a bunch of homeless people, new. These are not the ones that come with a voucher. And nobody has known about them before, probably this year. It's quadrupling the numbers.
I think nationwide we have about 7.2 households that are.
What do we do about them?
That's a question for HUD. It's always a matter of funding. But if someone falls out of our program, then we're going to be able to issue a voucher. So this is how you have new people getting a voucher.
Is there a new thing to do besides vouchers?
The provision of affordable housing where a voucher is.
I think the answer is you have to do a little bit of everything, right? To increase the housing stock, and to re-envision how you house people overall, right? Yeah, there's no silver bullet.
Yeah, voucher is a band-aid to our affordable housing program.
You know, for wealthy homeowners, the mortgage interest deduction is an entitlement program. If you're eligible for it, you get it. You get to deduct your mortgage interest off your income taxes. And there is far more not collected through the mortgage interest deduction program for wealthy homeowners than gets collected for, or than that gets spent on low-income rental assistance. So there's a huge unfairness, fundamental unfairness in federal housing policy that prioritizes, people at one end of the scale and not at the other end of the scale. So, this is it's
And that's the greatest subsidy that we give.
right, and it's tons not collected in order, and if you ask, if you walk into your congressperson's office or, Senator Ted Cruz or Senator John Cornyn's office and ask them if they live in subsidized housing, they would absolutely say, no, I'm sure, because they don't recognize that. They don't connect that dot. So, it is political. This is something that needs to be prioritized in this country. And the first step, I would disagree, it's not HUD. It is the people that go to Washington.
And I did get a notice last week that DHA opened up several units for vouchers. As I go in to check my site for payments, it flashed across there, one senior development is on there. And that came in last week.
But again, like she said, it's not commensurate to the need.
Right.
We can't bridge the gap alone.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, we hear from seniors all the time that maybe, $1,000 a month is more than some people get in Social Security. And, they moved into a place maybe 10 years ago at $500 a month, and then it went to $600, then it went to $750, then it went to $850, now it's $950. And if they don't have children who can pitch in, they are in dire need and just hanging on by a thread and have very fundamental needs that are going unmet. And, and we've got the city doing the 100 and 120% for at twice the rate they're doing at 30 and 50%, and it is wrong.
We're out of time. And so, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who We will make a list. We will record these questions that did not get asked and ask for our participants to answer the questions, and we'll post them on the website if they become available.
So you don't get away.
There is one last question, and I'm going to answer this one, okay? If you had to choose just one political action to take, what would that be? There isn't just one, guys. It's a process, and the most important thing is to be in touch with your elected officials. Every time you see something, say something.
I know. Well, a month and a half. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of things tonight.